Now, this is really important as well. This one has been really controversial over the last few years. It's called the 3 cueing system, and it's controversial for a very, very good reason. It would be great for you to talk to your teachers about it and see if they've heard the controversy and they've got opinions based on it as well. It originated from this research that I put the citation there on the slide for you from 1965. And it was a study of the errors, the miscues that children made. We don't want to be teaching children to guess. We don't want to be teaching children to miscue. And so the controversy here is that there is this assumption or thought that teachers are teaching children to use these 3 cues to guess at the word, when that is not what we want to be doing. We do not want to be teaching children to guess. But that's not the purpose of these 3 cues. These 3 cues are what children do when, in this study, when they used miscues, when they made errors. But the study was also about who was paying attention to the fact that they've used a miscue and then self-corrected. It's about their monitoring for meaning. Did they pick up on the fact that they didn't look at the whole word? Did they pick up on the fact that the word they said didn't make sense in the context of what they were reading? So maybe they were guessing. Did they pick up on the fact that they've changed tense, or it didn't quite make sense to use that particular word there structurally, syntactically? They picked up on that, so they went back and self-corrected. There can't be an adult sitting next to the child 100% of the time, listening to them read aloud and telling them when they make an error. They need their own self-monitoring skills to cue into when they may have made an error and need to go back and self-correct. That's when you teach them about the 3 cues. And it's about teaching them how to self-monitor, to check in to see if they've made an error and they need to go back and reread. So the graphophonic cues is when you look at a word and you decode the word letter by letter. So you're looking at the graphemes, you're looking at the letters to try and decode the word. Sometimes children may look at the first letter or some of the letters and think of a word that's similar to that word, that either starts with the same sound or has a similar spelling pattern, might be part of the same word family, and guess it's not the right word. It was just very similar in appearance. The semantic cues is when they're reading with meaning. They know what the story is all about up to this point, up until they get to this word. They've looked at the picture and they've got a bit of an idea from the picture of what's happening in the story, and they completely guess what the next word is without even looking at the letters. That's using semantic cues. Completely wrong. It's not what the word is, but it makes sense in the context of what they've been reading. So they're using semantic cues to try and work out what the word might be. Syntactic cues is when they, a good example might be if the text was written completely in the past tense, and then the next word, like the person ran, and then they said, "will run." And they've completely changed the tense. So it shows that they're not really tuning into the tense of the text. They might have fallen back onto the way they would have said it, and it does not match what was written on the page. They're guessing at what the words are. So for example, it something across the grass. Now, if my knowledge of language makes me think that the next word needs to be a verb of some sort. So if I said it snake across the grass, that would cue me into the fact that, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense grammatically. You wouldn't say a noun after the word it in that way. That doesn't make sense. I think I've made a mistake. I better go back and reread. In this example, Sophie watched the kitten. It slithered across the grass. So yes, I've used a verb this time, But my knowledge of what I've read so far, I'm talking about a kitten. I've read about a kitten. Saying slithered doesn't make sense in the context of what I've read. That cues me into the fact that, oh, maybe I've made a mistake. I better go back and reread and have a closer look at that word, make sure I'm decoding it properly. And now here, Sophie watched the kitten. If I said it walked across the grass, a kitten can walk, but if I'm looking at the first letter, it starts with the letter R, which makes a sound. So if I say walked, I'm not paying attention to the whole word. I must have made a mistake. That doesn't look right. I'm going to go back and have a closer look at that word. So it's about teaching children how to self-monitor so they can work out if what they're reading doesn't quite make sense and they need to go back and reread. So teaching them to ask themselves, does it make sense what I've just said? Does it sound right? Does it look right? Because if they've got a question mark and they think maybe it doesn't, they need to go back and reread and look more closely at the word because they've probably not decoded it accurately.